Hello everybody, welcome to Mile ADV, a beginner's guide to adventure motorcycling from a true motorcyclist perspective. And today we're going to talk about a video and some things that I think I'm probably going to get a lot of flack for, probably going to get even more comments than I've gotten on like some other forums and stuff, may even lose a few subscribers, but I feel like we need to talk about it. So with that being said, let's get into it. Clear as you can see, back in the garage today because the weather in Colorado is still a bit cold and snowy. Has been great for skiing, but not so much for getting out on the bike. There is some warmer weather in the forecast, and we are really close to spring here on the western slope, and so hopefully we can get out and do some more videos outside and talk about some different things. But today, back to a garage video. So if you're anything like me, when you're looking for a motorcycle, you're brand new to motorcycling, and so you're just trying to understand what kind of bike you want to get. Now for me, I knew I wanted an ADV bike, but still you're trying to understand motorcycling in general. And a lot of times you just kind of take what you know, and there's one iconic brand that kind of taught me the little that I knew about motorcycling, and I was trying to use that to relate to how I would get my own bike, and I just saw a lot of division and hate around this one brand. And if you've made it this far, you can probably already guess, but let's get into that brand and why I think us as the ADV community need to give them their due and maybe stop all the hate. So there were two young men named William and Arthur who lived in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. They both shared a passion for motorcycles and dreamed of building their own bikes. And in 1903, their dream became a reality when they founded, you probably guessed it, the Harley-Davidson Motor Company. In the beginning, Harley-Davidson motorcycles were used for more utilitarian purposes, such as police work and military transportation. However, after World War II, a new breed of rider discovered the motorcycles and began to use them for leisure. These riders formed motorcycle clubs and created their own subculture around the Harley-Davidson brand. Some of them good, some of them not so good. The Harley-Davidson culture became known for its distinctive style, including leather jackets, bandanas, beards. The motorcycles themselves are often customized with elaborate paint jobs, loud exhaust pipes, we'll touch on that one, so remember that later, and shiny chrome accents, which I can appreciate. I mean, this idea of customization and making something your own, I mean, if you look at my KTM, if you haven't saw my video on my top 5 mods, modding the bike to make it my own, and one thing that I put on it was the Scrubs design logos. Not only would it help protect the plastic parts if I were to lay the bike over, but also it kind of gives it a unique look. So this idea in the Harley culture of creating your own bike and building and customizing your bike, I think is really cool. In the 1960s and 70s, the popularity of Harley-Davidson motorcycles skyrocketed, and the brand became a symbol of rebellion and counterculture. The bikes were featured in popular TV and movie shows, cementing their place in popular culture. And if you're like me, did anybody else fall in love with that show Sons of Anarchy about like the 1%er motorcycle club? I loved it. We watched it all the way to the end. However, I never got into the Mayans thing, if you're into that. If you're interested in learning more about this like 1%er or kind of like outlaw club, that might be offensive. So if there's a 1%er club, like don't find me. I don't know my place, right? So, but there's a great channel, I think it's called like Ghost Rider or something like that. I think if you should in YouTube put like Ghost Rider, he does a whole bunch of videos just on the culture around these like motorcycle clubs and the do's and don'ts and kind of all the unwritten laws, and it's really fascinating. But despite facing challenges and changes in the motorcycle industry, there's no denying the fact that Harley-Davidson remains a powerful and iconic brand to this day, and the company continues to produce motorcycles that are beloved by riders all over the world. However, their 2023 release, at least on YouTube from other people who are into Harleys, doesn't seem that they got that well received this year. And so the story of Harley-Davidson lives on, inspiring riders all over the world to experience the thrill of the open road and to embrace the unique and vibrant culture that surrounds this iconic brand. So the question becomes, with this unique culture, why do we as ADV riders seem to hate them and hate the brand and have so much hate? And there's really like no place for Harley. It's like ADV everything or nothing, right? So I think there are a couple of reasons. I think there's stereotyping, obviously. Harley-Davidson motorcycles have a reputation for being associated with a certain type of rider. Those who are maybe a little bit more on the conservative political spectrum and have a certain look, like as we talked about earlier with the beards and the bandanas and maybe all the tattoos. And a lot of times maybe this can be offensive, right? You see this person and you immediately stereotype them, which we should never do, right? And as somebody who's heavily tattooed, for me, the biker shops were really the only place to get tattooed when I first got my tattoos. And I remember going in and it was like super scary and very intimidating. And I was doing all the stereotyping, like, oh, they're probably selling drugs out the back. Like, what if somebody, cops come in? Like, am I gonna get busted? Like, I just want to get a tattoo. But again, you get involved and you realize, like, no, they were just like everyday hardworking people, like you, that just loved a certain, were involved in a certain culture and were just great hardworking people in general. And you can't deny, even like in the tattoo culture, with the influence that these like biker shops had on that industry as a whole. I mean, now there's basically a tattoo shop on every corner and a lot of them are just producing really amazing work. It's not your traditional tattoo, the scratchy kind of biker thing, or maybe jailhouse tattoo look, and people are getting amazing pieces. And I think for me, at least in Colorado, tattooing, it all started kind of around this like biker culture here, as opposed to like the sailor culture in San Francisco, and had a massive impact, I think, in bringing tattooing to the masses. Noise. I think this is another thing that we can talk a lot about. Harley-Davidsons are often known for their loud exhaust pipes, which can be like super annoying to a lot of people, especially if you live in a residential area. And this has been, this obviously leads to kind of a stereotype that, people who ride Harleys are just inconsiderate of others. And I'm with you on this one, especially like I grew up in the small town of Golden, Colorado. And before they kind of re-gentrified downtown Golden, it was very biker centric. There was like a bar that was like, had biker rallies a lot. And I can always remember as a younger kid, like going to the pizza place that's downtown. And like, if you sat outside, there would always be the Harleys that would like cruise down Main Street, just blasting their pipes super loud. And you'd always just like sit there in disgust, like, oh, it's not that cool. It's way too loud. Like, how do you ride that thing? And so this one I can definitely understand. And even to this day, like when you're on the highway and somebody with their pipes are just so loud, like I don't get it, right? And it is, for the rest of us, it can be super annoying, but we live in America. You do what you want to do. It's not technically interfering with me and my liberties, so yeah, go for it. The next thing comes down to cost and reliability. I've seen a lot of quotes and comments about, a lot of people say Harleys are often more expensive than other brands, and some riders feel that the brand is overpriced and does not reflect the quality of the bike that they're paying for. And I think to kind of couple that, there have been a lot of people complaining about the Pan Am having issues, but with the Generation 1 product, I think that's to be expected, right? Like, here's a brand realizing that ADVs are very popular and that they should get in the space. And so I commend Harley for getting into it. And I was really, really interested in getting a Pan Am, but they were very hard to find. And some of these reliability issues did give me kind of concern. But I can also relate on the KTM. It was more difficult to find. Obviously they had one in stock because I got it, but I can't tell you the number of comments in my videos that I've gotten about the reliability of KTM. Like, hopefully that thing doesn't leave you stranded on the side of the road, and good luck, And I'm like, hey, I put a little over 2,000 miles on it. It's been a great bike. And I think this also goes back to personal responsibility for a lot of things too. We talked about personal responsibility and buying bigger bikes. How about some personal responsibility in actually taking care of your bike? If you ride it really hard and you basically ride it hard and put it away wet, like, it's probably not going to be super reliable. But if you're taking care of it, you're changing the oil, and you're not dirt biking, like me, like I'm doing a lot more easy dirt roads, like I feel like it should probably hand up. So I think there's some personal responsibility and also like maintaining and taking care of your motorcycle that goes into that reliability question. But for me, there's no denying the fact that Harley-Davidson has had a massive contribution to the motorcycle industry, and the company's role in popularizing motorcycles can't be overstated. From its innovative designs and military use to its racing success and iconic brand image, Harley-Davidson has had a lasting impact on the motorcycle community and continues to be one of the most recognized and beloved brands in the world. And everywhere you go, you can't deny the fact that when you look and you see that orange, you can just see that orange shield and you know that it's a Harley-Davidson. And for me, as a kid growing up and going to my uncle's house, I will always remember him having his motorcycle in his garage. He was always tinkering with it, pulling it apart, putting it back together. Now, does that go back to the fact of like Harleys being unreliable? I don't know. I don't remember him complaining about his bike being unreliable. But going there and seeing him tinkering on it in the bike, and you know, it did have loud pipes too. And so now as somebody who's not super into the whole loud pipe thing, but as a kid, it was like awesome, it was loud. It kind of started that interest in me in having my own motorcycle. And again, without that, maybe I'm not interested in, and maybe I don't get my own ADV bike, you know, a couple decades later. You know, and the thing is as someone who's been involved in another niche, the specialty coffee scene, for over a decade, there are a lot of things that we can say about that that can also be said about Harley-Davidsons or any other kind of cultural revolution. Anytime there's a group of people that come together to get really interested in one specific thing, there's always these stigmatas, right? And so when we think about specialty coffee, we think about hipsters and people who probably definitely have differing social opinions from, you know, our traditional Harley rider and all the other stigmatas that come along with this kind of hipster image. But as somebody who loves specialty coffee and everything about it, when people start to ask me about it and we get to geek out on the different regions and different producers and grind particle size, and we break out the refractometer and we're measuring extraction rates from our different brew methods to try to perfect that one cup of coffee, you know, there's one unique thing that always comes up, and it's like, oh, you must hate Starbucks. And just like Harley's in the motorcycle world, Starbucks has had a massive impact on opening people's eyes to what coffee can be. And you can bet your ass when I'm at the airport at 5:30 in the morning on a flight for work to go to a conference, whatever, I'm going to Starbucks and I'm getting a tall blonde roast with a little bit of cream. No sugar, of course. But I think the same thing can be said. You know, like Harleys clearly have their place. You know, with them entering the scene with the Pan Am, I'm still really interested in it. I'm really interested in, actually, for all of you BMW GS riders at your local Starbucks, you know, I'm interested in that BMW, and I'm also interested in the Harley-Davidson Pan Am. If I ever got rid of this, I would probably go one of those two directions. And just like we have stereotypes with everything else in specialty coffee, there are a lot of stereotypes, like I've just touched on, with adventure motorcycling, and everybody always jokes that if you own a BMW GS, you're basically just riding it down in the local Starbucks. So with that being said, I have to give Harleys their due, because without them, I can say without a doubt that they've had a massive influence in getting me into the motorcycle world, and why I may prefer to ride an ADV bike. If any Harley riders are out there and you want to go for a cruise and you're coming through the western slope of Colorado, I'd be happy to go on a ride with you. And we can even pull up to that local Starbucks and we can make all those BMW GS riders turn their head and think twice about an ADV rider and a Harley rider coming together. So with that, everybody, stay safe out there, stop the hate. Everything has its place, and just because somebody prefers something over you doesn't make it necessarily better or greater, but let's all just have fun and enjoy the ride. So until next time, stay safe out there.